Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everybody. Today we will continue talking to Doreen about her son, Alec, being a single parent and dealing with his violent behavior and property destruction. We'll have a very real discussion as two moms about our sons and about her ups and downs, trials and tribulations, and putting Alec into a residential program.
And I'm just interested in how you dealt with this as a single mom. Like, how did you go to work? Like, how did you, okay, he went to school. What are you doing with days when he doesn't have school? Or, did you have to get him off the bus in the afternoon? Like, how did you manage all that? And how are you managing his behaviors? Because I know with Robbie, men could get him more under control. If as soon as they learn they're bigger and stronger than you, then they start getting away with stuff. Tell me what that was like. And then also, I'm interested in what his relationship with his brother, like how did his brother feel while all this stuff was going on?
I'm glad you brought all that up. It's nice stuff. Some of it actually has a happy ending. At the time it didn't, but it's coming around now that my oldest son is older.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as far as work, I've always had a career. I'm in the IT field. I've always done very well with computers and information technology, mobile devices. I've just been in IT like forever. And I was divorced, so I had to sort of be the breadwinner and pay the bills. And, it was very difficult. Later on in my career, I worked from home, but at the early stages when the kids were younger, I actually did have to go into an office, and I relied on babysitters. So I would have babysitters or my neighbors help me out, like from 2:45 or something, when the bus came home, and I paid babysitters. My ex-husband and I, split it, and we paid babysitters basically.
I had trouble finding babysitters. When I had gone back to work, I had them, they used to last about a week and they would all quit.
Yeah, and I had that. So I went through a lot of them, and it was difficult if it didn't work out. It would lead to behaviors, because if you had the wrong person, I needed somebody that was like not too strict, but not too tough.
Right.
Like not too strict so that they would trigger him.
Right.
Too passive.
Right.
That, he could get away with anything.
Exactly.
And it was trying to find that balance. But I got lucky, that I did find several women over the years that really helped me work. One of the biggest challenges for me was that, so if I had a babysitter, they come 2:45, right? The expectation is they're there when the school bus comes. But the problem I ran into with him was that he would periodically just decide, I'm not going to school. I had a lot of the school refusal. And that's when things really started to become very difficult for me, because he could potentially jeopardize my job on a day that I had like some meeting that I had to leave and go to. Yeah. And now he's just like, I'm not going, and that actually, and the property destruction were the two contributing factors to me putting him in residential at a very young age. I started looking into residential in 2013, so that was 8 years ago. So he left home at a very young age and was in different programs. None of them really worked out, some better than others, but he left home, at a very, very young age, which was a very big loss for me. Because you're used to your children moving out when they go to college or something like that, but not like, at that age.
How old was he? What, like 14, 15, that age?
13, so that was 8 years ago. So 22, like 14, 14, 15. And then he was back and forth in between, because I'd send him to a program, he'd hate it, where they kick him out, and then he'd come back, and then again. It was on and off.
So what type of a program is this that you're talking about? Like a group home or?
So in 2013, I tried Devereaux group home in Morristown for children under the Children's System of Care. And that didn't work out. And then I think I tried home again. And then eventually I tried Wood Services and, various different programs under the Children's System of Care that he was in for different periods of time until now he's in the adult system.
How did you even get him into these programs is what I want to know, because it's next to impossible.
I'm a very good advocate. Yeah, I'm actually thinking of starting my own blog on how to advocate for your special needs.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would need that.
I think that what helped the most was getting him involved in the children's system of care and getting involved in that system. It's a system run
What
by
is that? That's through the state of New Jersey or what?
It's through the state of New Jersey, and if you have children that are exhibiting behavioral issues, and this has nothing to do with necessarily developmental, it's just behavioral issues. I was told by his psychiatrist at the time that that was an option. So I reached out to the.
Okay, so that's where it began. The psychiatrist told you.
Because my son was so high functioning that was an option for me. Like, in other words, the behavioral path, I guess, was an option for me, because this agency at the time, it's different now, but at the time they didn't deal with special needs. DDD did. They dealt more with just your regular typical child that's having behavioral issues. And because he was so high functioning, they took the case.
Okay.
Linked me up with services in my home.
Okay.
You know, a case manager, and and then eventually when all the, a behaviorist, different things. But then when the in-home services were not sufficient, then they saw what I was dealing with the property destruction started getting much more dangerous, in terms of like ripping outlets out and wires exposed and things like that. They helped me locate residential services for him. They helped me out with that.
So what kind of place is this that he went to? It was a house. It was there were other guys that lived there.
First one was a house, with maybe like three or four other young men like him, around the same age, in a nice tree-lined block in Morristown, New Jersey. And, he went and we toured it and he had dinner with them, and, it seemed like it was a good fit.
And there's full-time staff there all the time.
Full-time staff all the time. But I didn't know anything about all this stuff at the time. All I knew was it's not working home. You need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you close? I want you close so I can visit you a lot, and I'll see you later.
Right.
Well, he didn't want to go. That was number one.
He did or he did not?
Not.
He did not. Okay.
Not want to go, and he did not like it. And
Okay.
So he exhibited a lot of property
Behavior.
and a lot of behaviors, and it lasted a month.
And then what? He got kicked out or what?
Pretty much.
Okay. And then what? Where'd you go next?
At one point, they had a program called the START program, short-term autistic residential treatment facility. It was like kind of like a program within a program. It wasn't like the regular wood services. It was just kind of like a building, and they were focused on like really targeting maladaptive behaviors like my son had, treating it, and then trying to integrate them back home.
Okay.
So
So meanwhile, he's going to school where? He's just going to a regular public school now, or?
he was in Woods. He was going to school at Woods because they had their own school right on the campus. Everything, it was a campus-based setting in Pennsylvania. And I was able to get New Jersey to do that.
Oh, this is in Pennsylvania. Okay. Okay. So they said they had the school and a residential, so everything was there.
He didn't fit into the group home structure very well. He needed a more contained setting that was a little safer, because in case he tried to run away or anything like that. So this building was like a lockdown facility with alarms, and the school was literally like right across the street, and they had a behaviorist. It was like a mini, like a hospital, but like just a mini like residential treatment facility. It was like a lockdown building with bedrooms, and all the clinical staff were in that building in their offices. And they had a big common area where everyone would watch TV. And it was geared for people with autism around his age. And they had a psychologist, and it was a multidisciplinary program designed, for people like Alec. They had lower functioning, higher functioning, kind of ran the gamut. And it sounded good because, I mean, ultimately my goal was to have him home. So a program that was going to work on reuniting, which is what the Children's System of Care, for those who don't know, is about, not, placing your children indefinitely, but trying to help them, treat them, and then reunite with the family. So that program kind of fit with the goal that I had in mind. And he was there for, he was actually there for a couple of years. It was supposed to be 6 months, but.
It's interesting. I mean, that facility to me sounds more like an institution because it's like a hospital type of a setting. And in New Jersey, there was a big push to get them out of that and get them in group homes instead. But it sounds to me like he's saying, I like being in the hospital. And he doesn't like being in the group home. And I was trying to make this point with somebody else too. Like, they don't like what we like, and you're trying to push them into a life that we would want. That's not necessarily what they want or what they like, or not saying that an institution is the answer, but I think there's got to be some type of a happy medium, something place that's highly structured and they're safe so they can't injure themselves, they can't run away, have staff that knows what they're doing.
There's no in between. I mean, this is what I'm struggling right now with in the adult system, because he just moved into a group home and we're having a lot of problems. He's been in the hospital 4 times already.
So he was at this place, was that place until they turned 21? Was that just for you? It was for youth.
For that. He was also in another program run by Legacy Treatment Services, and until he was just about, I guess, 20. And then I tried taking him home in between again. I mean, I would try that every now and then think, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then, so it hasn't been a straight path. There's been a lot of placements. It's been in a lot of placements, but this is the first group home. And
this is where he is now.
Where he is right now is
in a group home in New Jersey.
New Jersey, not far from me, in the community, and he is.
And this is for a place for people with behavioral issues or autism or what?
It's higher functioning adult males, 4 to a house, but right now they only have 2. It's a hands-off program. They're not allowed to restrain. A lot of the programs in New Jersey are moving more in that direction because people can get hurt. So it's a hands-off program. It's not a behavioral house, like in the sense that it's all highly behavioral people. And I think that's part of the reason it's not working.
Well, this is why I'm asking, because you said the other place is more for mental health behaviors or whatever, not necessarily for disabilities like autism, right? It's like, sounds like it's 2 separate things. So
doesn't have social workers. They don't have anybody really to address the mental health aspect of things. And this is where I'm really struggling. Everything is sort of outpatient. You have to take them for their appointments. I mean, well, the group home has to take them for their appointments, whether it be a psychologist or a psychiatrist or doctor or whatever. It's not all self-contained like the more institutionalized settings or like the residence treatment facilities where everything is kind of there.
Right.
So, it's all piecemeal and
right, and all these doctors don't talk to each other.
And you got to try to link them up with each other, and then if you have an emergency and you need there's nobody there. Like, you have to try to hope that they're available, hope they call you back, convince them of what's happening, hope that they can make whoever is covering for them make the right med change. And if they don't, then he ends up in the hospital, in which case then they really screw his meds up, because in the hospital, he's a random person. They don't know the history. And sometimes they don't consult with the parent. Even in a voluntary admission, they don't oftentimes act as though there's a parent involved. I mean, at least as for an adult child, that I'm experiencing right now, not so much when he was little, they would consult with me, but I'm finding as an adult, even though I have full guardianship, that they're making all of these decisions as though like he's an orphan or something. I mean, as a matter of fact, even if I call to speak to, somebody, and just say like, if he's in the psyche R, for example, and I waiting for bed and I call to just like, I state my name and and I want to know who, and they go, I say that I'm his mother, I'm Alec's mother, I'm Doreen, I'm Alec's mother. And they're like, yeah. And like, yeah, like is the response that I get. And I'm like, yeah. Like it just immediately pisses me off, because
Is this in the hospital or this is in the group home that you're talking about?
hospital,
Okay.
that I have to, and I say, mothers kind of want to know how their children are doing,
Yeah.
like I say that because it just, it's ridiculous. And the group homes, they're more DDD based, developmentally disabled based in the sense that they just don't really understand the mental health aspect of it. That is, coupled with a developmental disability. And my son has mental health issues in combination with autism. And that's what makes, treatment programs, everything just kind of fall apart. Like, I think, even some of the most behavioral children or adults with autism, they have an easier time. Not that it's easy, but they have an easier time. But when you add the mental health aspect to it, it just confuses everybody because then it just becomes trial and error, and they don't really, the staff are just not trained at all to deal with this type of population. They end up inadvertently triggering them when they're supposed to be calming them.
They have
And
no training at all.
no, no.
This is just a minimum wage job that
Yeah.
they come in thinking that this is just an easy job where, all they have to do is make sure they brush their teeth and get bathed and go to bed, and then they can go and do their homework because they're usually going to school for something else or whatever, or watch football and, and send them off to their room, and they ignore them all day. They don't know what they're doing at all, at all.
No, so this awakening for me, I was thinking that it was more like the children's system of care, even though the children's system of care wasn't perfect, it was more clinical. They had a social worker in a lot of these programs. Some of them had a psychiatrist. Staff were much more trained in like Nurtured Heart, or which is a training where, where you use positive, just, build people up and talk to them nicely and, use positive methods of communicating. And, and they don't really, none of that training exists in the adult system. It's almost like they just expect them to move into this house and here you go, like, and put your bed in there and like, here's the sink and, go to the refrigerator if you're hungry and have a nice day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It is. It's kind of like babysitting. I felt like, because when Robbie went into the group home, my son David was in, whatever, middle school, high school. And I said, this is like my son David babysitting. First of all, he doesn't know how to cook. Like the dinners they made for him were chicken nuggets in the toaster oven, and every day, and then he started getting annoyed and he'd throw it across the room and they think he's having a behavior. And I said, no, I've told you 10 times he doesn't want to eat that crap.
Right.
Make him real food. He doesn't want, and you're giving him the same thing every day. Well, that's the only thing he eats. No, it's not. I've told you what he eats. And when I put him in the group home, they told me they would have a menu for him, and I'd see this menu. I'd see a calendar of all his activities. It was all bull.
Yeah.
There was none of that. There was none of that. This was like, these were guys that, there were young guys that didn't have kids of their own. So they don't know how to cook. They don't know how to dress him. They don't know how to do his laundry. Like I would go over and I'd pull out of his drawer a shirt that was like a triple XL.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is not my son's shirt. And it has the other kid's name on it. I was like, what is this stuff doing in his drawers? Like that would drive me, it's that mom stuff that drives you nuts.
Yes.
And I'm like, you guys are just, this is like having like an 8th grader babysit these kids that has no idea what they're doing and forget any kind of, like I tried to get them to learn how to do sign language or use his pecs, try to help him communicate, it would just go in one ear and out the other. And it was so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you right now, Cindy, where I'm at is my older son, Brandon, and I are looking into potentially doing self-directed. And we're looking into the possibility right now of buying like a log cabin because there's no sheetrock.
That's smart.
We're actually, so one of my friends suggested it, and I thought it was a brilliant idea because we
Yeah,
thought we might build a house with cinder blocks behind the sheet and all this stuff
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
to do. But if we could just buy a log cabin, I mean, I don't know. So it's something that we're looking into right now. We're looking into possibly doing self-direct. It's not going to be immediate. There's a lot that goes into it that I mean, it's not exactly how I want to spend the rest of my life kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, you didn't see yourself in a log cabin, but yeah.
But no, actually, it's not for me. I'm not going to live there with him. It would be
Oh,
for
okay. Oh, for him.
I would
Got it.
hire staff.
Oh, and
Um,
hire, yeah.
yeah, and then live near there though, that like if somebody called out, or something like that. So it's not like a done deal yet. It's just something that we're starting to explore
Trying to
because
figure it out on your own, yeah, because the system isn't working. So I have asked a couple moms about this too. Like we're in the town where I live, Lantern Hill is it's assisted living, okay, but there's hundreds and hundreds of units, and it's like its own little city. So they have like restaurants there, the doctors are there, everything they need is right there. If they need a nurse, everybody's there in this facility. And I always said that would be perfect for Robbie and other people like him because they could all live and have their own community there. And now you're teaching me this whole other element about that I hadn't really thought of about having all the doctors. Because I always would say, if I could just get all of his doctors in one room at the same time and all talk to each other, then maybe we could figure this out. Because one says one thing, another says another thing. Like I remember when he had really high arches in his feet and stuff. And one doctor wanted to do surgery, and the other said, "Well, of course he wants to do surgery because he's a surgeon. But we should be doing this." Da, da, da. And I'm like, "Could you guys just talk to each other?"
yeah.
Um, and to me, that's kind of my dream is to have a place where there's just like all these group homes and apartments and stuff, and have it like one whole big community where and all the staff that is there is all trained. And I had thought about having a nurse there, but now I'm thinking how great would it be to just have like a whole like group of medical people there. And this is like a state of the art place where everybody comes and everybody knows what they're doing, and it's a place where everybody thrives. It only take a couple hundred million.
Like that in Arizona. They have something similar to that in Arizona.
There's a place in Texas that I had seen that years ago, and
Yeah.
it's a doctor and his wife that built it. They bought like 100 acres of land or something, of farmland, and they built it. And that's where I got the idea from. I was like, we need that in New Jersey.
Need that in New Jersey.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. But it's like $200 million or something. I'm like, it's only money, you know. And just talking to you too about how your son he's high functioning and stuff, but he still has the behaviors, and he still needs people that are trained that know how to deal with him, and there's no reason why they can't all be in a place like that, all different levels, because they can actually help each other, like it's good for the lower functioning kids to be around higher functioning one, people that can talk and whatever. I don't know. I was just curious what your thought was about that, if you think that's a good idea or it's not.
absolutely. I mean, that's what I need right now is something like that for him, but it doesn't exist in New Jersey. And so that's why I'm kind of like up against a wall right now, not knowing what to do with somebody that really needs a little more containment. It's like setting, not an institution necessarily,
Right.
not inside a building, but just, a bunch of houses in a campus-based setup similar
Yes.
to Woods is.
To me, it's like, because I got, when I heard about that, my son David was going to college, and I'm like, well, yeah, and they thrive in that environment, and this should be the same thing, kind of like a campus,
Yes, yes.
that would be perfect. And some could be in houses, some could be in apartments, whatever. And then you've got a mess hall, and you got a gym, and you got, the pool, you got activities, but everything's contained, and have all the doctors come into that facility, and then they're all on the same page. They all can talk about everybody together. You train everybody. But even more so now this year with COVID, I really saw it, because if you have your own community, you're not stuck just in your house, but you can at least still go to your gym and you know what I mean? You have places to go and things to do, but still only in your community, you're still safe.
Right. And the COVID is just making the situation a million times worse.
So much worse. Yeah.
They need to be busy.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do a day program right now virtually on this, on this little tablet, this 8-inch screen. I mean, I got him a computer eventually, but that got broken. So it's like, I don't really want to spend the money because he breaks everything. But then when I gave him the tablet, he said, he couldn't do a day program on a tablet. And when I gave him the computer, he couldn't do a day program on the computer either. So
no.
Well, I can't win, but they need to be moving. They need to be burning the energy.
Yes.
They endorphins. They need to be physical, and he's just sitting like all day, on a computer. And
it's hard enough for us to be sitting in the house all the time, but when you add all of their anxiety and OCD and it's 20 times worse, 100 times worse.
Right.
I don't think people understand.
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie would have been running back and forth, slamming doors, breaking stuff. He would have broke it. I mean, my house too was like that. Every door was broken off. My whole kitchen was destroyed from him slamming all the doors. All the doors came off of all of my cabinets in my kitchen. He threw all my dishes down the stairs. Like he broke every, I had hit holes in, he would bang holes in his walls in his room, bang on the windows. My house everything was destroyed, and it's depressing living like that. And for my job, I go and see everybody else's beautiful homes, and then I come home and mine's falling apart, piece of crap,
Yeah.
So that's why when I was at your house, I'm like, don't even worry about it because I got it. I got you. We're living the same life.
Yes.
I'm amazed when I see kids try to get into day programs after 21 and they won't take them if they have behaviors. I'm like, well, what's the point? They all have behaviors. And again, that's just because, I don't know, they're not trained and they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. It's just, this is a rude awakening, this whole adult system. I expected so much more. And I'm just, I'm not getting what I expected, and I'm told, that the one he's in is one of the better ones. And it's not like, 10 days after he got there, he eloped and they called me and said they didn't know where he was. Like literally he was gone.
Yeah, that was what I was afraid of with Robbie too. I was so afraid he was going to elope.
Like looking for him, and then they tell me that I'm too involved and I need to like back off and let them do their job. And I'm like, then I want him alive. Like,
yeah.
Lost him like 10 days after he moved in at night and called me like, and he was missing for an hour. And like, you think that like built trust,
Yeah.
Like that scared the crap out of me.
They wait for an hour before they call you. That's great.
Well, no, he was missing for an hour. I think it took him like 20 minutes to even know he was missing.
Oh my God.
He went out the window, so it's yeah. So I almost feel like I'm a group home manager,
I know.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, because that's another level to it too. You have a house manager, and if they're not good, and they're not organizing everything, then it's like Animal House, just not, just not going to work. If you had a meeting with the governor or the senator or somebody who's a policymaker, what would you tell them is it really they need to address that really needs to be done?
I think that they need to have some campus-based settings in New Jersey, similar to the way Wood Services is, where, they could maybe have, like you said, some supervised apartments for people that need less supervision, group homes or RTFs for people that need more supervision, but have something, similar to that so that people don't have to look in other states to try to find the services that they need for their children, where they've lived their whole life in New Jersey and now they have to leave because there is nothing.
Which is amazing to me because New Jersey is supposed to be like state of the art, like the top when it comes to education and school for autistic kids.
Yeah.
We're like the best. Like people move here to put their kids in school in New Jersey, but then after they turn 21,
what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing. And have a social worker at some of these group homes so that those that are verbal, can have somebody to talk to and sort out their problems with so that they don't have to resort to behaviors and property destruction, just like a social worker, even once a week, within the home, because sometimes they just need that, somebody to talk to. And the deficits for the dually diagnosed with autism and mental health issues, there is such a leaping hole in that area that they just keep ending up in the ERs, and the ERs have no idea what to do with people that are behavioral, and they
No.
just warehouse them there. They try sticking meds in them just because they don't know what else to do. The parents end up with these big bills, from the insurance for these hospitals, only to be back in the same situation a couple of weeks later. Some of these programs need to be geared for those that have multiple diagnoses, not just autism. It doesn't exist right now. And so I don't know what I'm going to do, honestly. Like right now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm scared.
Yeah.
That there is no place in this state that we call home.
I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just hoping that the more moms that I talk to, that hopefully somebody will listen to us and something will get done. So
This is a great project, Cindy, and a very, very good idea. And I really hope it's a success and these interviews really achieve some change.
yeah, I hope so too. Well, thank you for joining me today and being real and talking to me about your life and Alec. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Cindy, take good care. I'll talk to you
Okay.
soon.
All right. All right. Good night.
Bye.
That's it for today's
Thank you
episode.
for joining
I
us
hope you
today.
enjoyed listening
Be
and
sure
it
to
helped
join
you
us
gain a
again
new
on our next
perspective.
episode
If
of
you're interested
Spectrum
in buying our
Perspectives.
book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.